After a poor start to the 2022 season, Mercedes seems to have found a permanent solution to push their car back to the front of the pack, with sufficient performance that can be a threat to the Ferrari and Red Bull dominance. Throughout the first 9 rounds of the season, silver arrows were vigorously bouncing, making it harder to drive for both Lewis Hamilton and George Russell. The Brackley-based team came up with different types of upgrades to solve the issues in their W13, and nothing appears to be working in their way until the Barcelona Grand Prix. Barcelona upgrades appeared to be successful during that race, but they seem to be suffering again with the porpoising issue in the next 2 races held in the streets of Monaco track and Baku. But the Mercedes engineering team defined bouncing and porpoising as 2 different phenomena, where they suffered from bouncing in the street circuits of Monte Carlo and Baku. Anyhow, the recently concluded Canadian Grand Prix is a consolatory one for the Brackley-based team. This was the most competitive race weekend for Mercedes in terms of pace, as they showed greater improvements compared to the previous Grand Prix. Due to the complaints from both the Mercedes drivers, Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, about the physical pain and potentially dangerous situation, FIA, the governing body of Formula One, instructed all the teams to come up with a solution to their porpoising issue. A technical directive from FIA permitted the use of a second-floor stay shortly before the Friday practice session in Montreal, and the most surprising thing is that Mercedes is the only team to introduce this new floor design during the practice, creating a huge protest from the rival teams. In order to avoid any official protests, Mercedes had to remove that part just before the race. Red Bull team principal Christian Horner criticized this sudden decision from the FIA, citing that it is totally in favor of Mercedes. Horner suggested that the time period between the directives and Friday's practice session is not sufficient enough to introduce such a floor design unless Mercedes worked without prior knowledge. What was particularly disappointing was the second stay, the Red Bull team boss said. It has to be discussed in a technical forum, and that is overtly biased to sorting one team's problems out. The only team who turned up here with it, even in advance of the technical directive. So work that one out, Christian Horner said, criticizing the act of FIA. Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff believes that the porpoising issue, which moves the car up and down as the load increases on the straights, has been eradicated during the Montreal race weekend. But that solution opens the path for many other problems as well. W13 is now super stiff with a low ride height, which causes bouncing problems in the bumpy circuits. Toto Wolff said, "I think in a way we have dissected what we define as porpoising or bouncing, and it is that the porpoising, which is the aerodynamic movement of the car, I think that's solved, and we got on top of this around Barcelona. It is more that the ride of the cars is really what causes the comments of the drivers. The cars are simply all too stiff. The curb ride is bad, the bump ride is bad, and I would say that now, with dissecting this problem, you can tackle it better." Mercedes principal Toto Wolff thinks that the recent upgrades have pushed them to the same level as their rivals, who are also suffering from the problem of running stiff things. "What we see in the cars is just the stiffness," he said. "You look at some of the slow motions from the 2 leading cars and the Alpines, you see that they are bouncing off the curb in a very hard way. This is what the drivers actually complained about, the stiffness of the car. This is something we need to look at, how we can reduce the impact. And of course, the smoother the track, the better. The lower the curbs, the less we see this phenomenon. I think we just need to put more load in the car, more downforce, and equally do that with a car that is now as low on the ground as we expected. It's a clear direction, you can see the cars going higher, and this is where we need to find the performance," Wolff said further. Except during the season opening race in Bahrain, Hamilton was unable to match the performance of his teammate George Russell, and there was a huge criticism regarding the performance of the 7-time world champion. But he was able to push his car into a podium finish ahead of his young teammate George Russell at the end of the Canadian Grand Prix. "It's quite overwhelming, honestly, to get this 3rd place," said Hamilton. "It's been such a battle this year with the car and as a team, but we continue to stay vigilant and focused and never giving up." That's something I'm so proud of, and I'm inspired by my crew, so thank you to everyone that's here and back at the factory. Lewis Hamilton finished the race in third position, just 7 seconds behind the race leader Verstappen, thanks to the safety car at the latter part of the race. 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton is very confident about the form of Mercedes in last few races compared to its rival Red Bull and Ferrari. Hamilton said, "They're a little bit too quick for us at the moment," he said about the cars ahead. "I was giving it everything, but we're getting closer, so we've just got to keep pushing. Hopefully we'll be in a fight with these guys." But the start to the Canadian Grand Prix was not a pleasant one for 7-time world champion, with the failed experiment to the floor design of the car that he labeled as a disaster. But they were able to fix everything when it came to the race thanks to the effort of their engineering team. "Honestly, our pace was quite good, particularly in the second phase of the stint," he said. "We did a lot of work back in the simulator, but also here to get the setup right. So honestly, I'm ecstatic. I didn't expect this coming into the weekend. It's my second podium of the year, so this feels really special, especially where I got my first Grand Prix win." 3-4 finish in Canada Grand Prix matched the team's largest points haul of the season, giving a boost of their championship battle. Their next challenge is the Silverstone GP, which is the home race for the Mercedes F1 team and both of their British drivers. Mercedes team principal feels it would be better to be cautiously optimistic about the performance level of the W13 in the Silverstone circuit, despite the good results in Montreal. Toto Wolff pointed out this case with the past experience of a series of poor performances in Monaco and Baku, next to the greater performance of the team during the Spanish GP. Wolff said, "You can see the hairpin is where they put new asphalt in there, and we suffered less from the stiffness of the car, which is the main problem. But I would think before the safety car came out at the end, we were actually quicker than Sainz and Verstappen up ahead. But you're picking out a few laps, and you're saying, yeah, we're back. So I don't think that's the case yet. We'll just need to keep working." Ferrari looked so dominant at the beginning of the season, being the top contender for the 2022 Drivers' and Constructors' titles. But Red Bull were able to adjust their car quickly in a way that matched the Ferrari's performance level. Ferrari lost their grip in the championship battle to a certain extent with the poor performance of their drivers, and due to the reliability issues of the F175, opening the door for Red Bull to take the lead in both of the championships. Mercedes was greatly suffering from the porpoising issue, but George Russell was able to finish all the completed rounds within the top 5. This is the best proof of the reliability of the W13, as both Ferrari and Red Bull were greatly suffering from the reliability issues. If they have found an actual solution to the porpoising issue, George Russell will surely be a threat to the championship hopes of Ferrari and Red Bull in the latter part of the 2022 Formula One Championship.